Okay, I have to ask, your title of Cosmic Engagement Officer, how does that connect to the personal journey that you just shared? Or how did you land on that title?
Yeah. Well, when I promoted my brother to president, he knew I didn't want to be CEO. It's like, so he came up with Cosmic Engagement Officer. But it's also, I think, like, probably most of my family, I'm most with my granddad.
Welcome to Beyond the Board, where we break bread with some of the most interesting and influential industry leaders. I'm Alyssa Vesho, Senior Vice President at Whole Foods Market, and I'm honored to host in-depth conversations with some of the most innovative and impactful leaders shaping the food industry. Today, I'm joined here by David Bronner of Dr. Bronner's Soap. And what began as a small family soap business has grown into one of the most influential, pioneering, mission-driven brands in the world. Known for their all-in-one Castile soaps and iconic philosophy-packed labels, Dr. Bronner's has also become a powerful advocate for regenerative organic agriculture and ethical business practices. And under David's leadership as the Cosmic Engagement Officer, coolest title ever, by the way, the company has proven that a brand can grow globally without compromising its values. So David, thank you so much for joining me today in Austin. I've been so looking forward to this conversation to dive a little bit deeper into your story, into the history.
Yeah, right on. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so I'd love to start by having you share a little bit about the Dr. Bronner's story. Can you talk about the family history that shaped the brand?
Yeah, so my grandfather, Dr. Bronner, was himself a third-generation master soap maker from a German Jewish soap-making family. His grandfather, Emanuel Bronner, began manufacturing soap in 1858 in the basement of their home in a small southern German town of Laupheim. We actually recently purchased our ancestral home and remodeled it. It's now a home for autistic adults. It's a Catholic-run charity that has assisted living homes throughout southern Germany. And then the basement is a museum to our soap-making history. And the next generation, so my granddad's father, Berthold, and two of his uncles expanded the operation quite a bit. They had a factory in Heilbronn, and actually our name was Heilbronner. So we actually came from there. And we were supplying a lot of the public washrooms throughout Germany. My granddad, became a master chemist under the guild system at the time, or master soap maker, but was clashing with his dad. He was very activist and came over at the age of 21 in 1929 to the U.S. and kind of landed in the Chicago, Milwaukee area. And not so much because of Hitler, who it wasn't clear yet what that was going to be, but more just to forge his own path in life. And he was like kind of a consultant to like the Procter & Gamble's of the world, helping design factories and launch products. But with the rise of Hitler, he got increasingly desperate to get his family out. His two sisters got out, but his parents, like a lot of bourgeois Jews, stayed till it was too late. The factory was Aryanized and they were deported and eventually killed in the camps. My granddad had met and married my grandmother, who also was in and out of hospitals in this time and died in 1944 when my dad was very young. So my granddad was going through a lot of trauma and grief. Mm-hmm. And so he felt urgently called to go promulgate his one love philosophy and was going around the U.S. lecturing and was selling his natural Castile soap, family soaps on the side that at that time were kind of now increasingly out of fashion. This is the post-World War II, better living through chemistry era, plastics and, petrochemical everything, synthetic fertilizers, synthetic pesticides, just that advent of that. And in personal care, it was like all these kind of more synthetic detergent formulas. But he stayed true to these natural Castile soap recipes. He was, he understood early on the danger, the environmental impact of what was happening. So stayed true to these very biodegradable, concentrated, versatile soaps. And at some point realized going around lecturing that people were more coming to get the soap than to stick around to hear what he had to say. So that's when he put his message on the label. And for him, the soaps were there to sell the label. And it was all about the message of unity. Like, we must unite to spaceship Earth. We're all one or none.
Yeah. What an incredible story. So much I want to dig into in what you just shared. One of the points that you made that really struck me is the idea of selling soap to sell a label, which is so backwards from how any other brand thinks about it. So that responsibility that your grandfather really cultivated in the ethos of the brand, how do you think about that today in terms of your leadership in areas like regenerative organic certification?
We've got that nonprofit ethos at the heart of everything we do. And yeah, just to really honor the mission of my granddad, and then subsequently my mom and dad and Uncle Ralph, who ran through the 90s and did amazing things as far as our employee practices. We actually, like, early on, I could kind of see what was happening with this macro trend of health and wellness mainstreaming, and just see where the brand was going. And also just watching how do you say, expenditures rise to meet income. And actually, my dad, shortly before he died, really set the example for us. And a third of our worth was tied up in like 1,000 acres of land in East County, San Diego. And my granddad had set up, initially was in LA, and then they come down to San Diego in the early 60s. But my dad oversaw the soap manufacture at this chemical specialty firm, but became head of that company. And I grew up working for my dad. And so my dad actually oversaw this transfer or donation of land to the Boys and Girls Club, San Diego. And it was like a third of our whole worth. And we had all these estate taxes that we were dealing with from when my granddad had died not that long before. And, my mom and dad were like, look, okay, we've ran the numbers. We can afford to do this, so we're going to do it. And I really set the example. Like, if we have it and we can give it, we're going to give it.
A quick aside, because you've mentioned some of the dynamics within the family. What's it like to work with your family? Because I know now you're working with your brother.
Yeah, well, it's awesome. Obviously there's pros and cons.
Yeah.
But we recently were at this family business conference where we were given an award in Orange County. There was like 100 family businesses in there, and I was sharing our story, and I was just noting, in every family business, secession is always a thing. Are your kids interested or not? And a lot of times they're not. And including me, graduating college, one thing I knew is I was not going to work for the family company. I love my family, but I want to do my own thing.
Yeah. Surprise. Here you are.
Yeah. I had to find my own path in.
Yeah.
And eventually I read Paul Hawkins' Natural Capitalism, realized, business can be a force for progressive and social change. And, and a lot of parallels to Whole Foods and John Mackey's journey. So I found my own way back in, and I was noting, and it kind of fulfills the wish of a lot of family business. They have kids that are similarly disinterested, and their dearest wish is that they find their path back. But also I was noting that in a family business, you have to work out your stuff with your family. And I have so many friends who are completely disconnected from their families. It's just they see them, once a year at the holidays.
Yeah.
And, me and my mom and my brother, we had to work our stuff out because, and we work every day together, and we're, just together all the time. And my brother-in-law is the chief of operations, mom's CFO, my brother's company president.
Yeah.
Like Bronner. Lisa, my sister's got an amazing blog. So yeah, we get to spend so much time together, and in a way that most families don't, just because of, we get to be in family business.
Yeah. That's amazing. And the shared values and shared mission inherent in it being such a family base.
Yeah. Well, I had not watched, what is it? I don't know. There was some show that was about inheritance or something. Severance?
Oh, Succession?
Succession. I heard how gnarly it can
That's
be.
That's very
Let's
different,
just say, we have been very fortunate that all the relevant family members and owners and executives have been on the same page. That,
a
with
shared ethos.
Because anybody who wasn't, like I was saying, a minority investor is on the line, they can sue, hey, you got to stop giving all our money away,
Yeah.
And but we've fortunately had that family cohesion around the mission.
Yeah. One of the things that I've really been inspired by with your approach, and it was so visible to me when we visited Ghana together last year, but the way you cultivate that sense of family and community within your team more broadly Can you talk a little bit about the work that you're doing in Ghana and with Serendi Palm or one of the other projects you have around the world and the community level impact that you're having?
Yeah, absolutely. It was such an honor to visit recently with the Whole Foods team and yourself to Serendi Palm is our sister company in Ghana that produces the palm oil for our bar soaps. And palm oil, as many know, is generally produced in a terribly destructive way, really, really horrible environmental and social impacts. Rainforest in Indonesia and Borneo is being ripped up, and these monoculture palm plantations go in, and farming communities are displaced, and then are forced to go to work for slave wages on these plantations. It's really socially disruptive as well as an ecological catastrophe. But there's nothing inherent about palm that's bad. It's actually one of the most efficient oil producing, in fact, is the most efficient oil producing crop in the world and can be grown in a totally regenerative way. And it was important for us to figure out, to have direct trading relationships with the farming communities and not buy from brokers on price and spec, which unfortunately that's what most companies do. And we were doing on some of our commodities. And you just realize when you're doing that and you don't have visibility and transparency to, the actual source conditions, like you're fueling this race to the bottom because corporations are figuring out, what countries have the most lax environmental and labor standards, lowest cost of production. And then they go in and just, produce commodities in a really destructive way. And that's basically the story of the planet. And then the sixth great extinction event we're causing, industrial agriculture being such a key driver. But that can actually be a solution. Like when you become conscious and you say, okay, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to participate in that. I want to know the farming communities that we're getting our raw materials from and make sure we're paying a fair price so that they can take care of their land and their people in a good way in their communities. And so in the case of Serendi Palm, West Africa is the actual origin of palm as far as biologically. And so we don't have to clear cut any forests, and our farmers are actually intercropping palm with cacao, banana, and cassava, and some timber and actually some fruit trees. And it's called dynamic ag forestry, and you're replicating a wild forest, like a wild ecosystem where you have like your tall trees and your mid-level trees and your bushes and your ground cover. And when you farm and you make your farming ecosystem replicate that rather than a monoculture, you're actually maximizing photosynthetic capture because of the different canopy heights, and you're boosting yields. So if you had those same crops I just said in the same area, but in monoculture blocks, we're producing like 50% more through this dynamic planning. So there's more yield, there's more income. You're also interrupting the weed and pest pressure, which, when you have these dense monocultures, like with cacao in West Africa, I mean, it's like so insecticide intensive because they're just all planted together.
Yeah.
So we're reducing the weed and pest pressure in cacao. Also has some huge social problems, child slavery. So our farmers are showing how you can take two of the world's most problematic crops and grow them in this dynamic way to the benefit of the soil, to the community, to the earth. So we're excited about that. And I'll just say one other. So each of our ingredients has a cool story.
I learned a bit about that in Garrow's book. Do you want to give a shout out or a plug for Garrow's 100%, book?
Exactly. So Garrow Lasson, our VP of Special Operations, oversees an amazing team of agronomists and experts and fair trade experts that help our projects around the world set them up or help our partners. And it's called Honor Thy Label is the book, Dr. Bronner's Journey to a Clean, Green, and Ethical Supply Chain. And he goes deep into each of our major raw materials, and they all have unique stories and they're all awesome.
It's such a great read. So I'll just kind of reiterate what a great learning opportunity it was. And also through the work of Dr. Bronner's, you're proving that it's possible. So do you want to share a challenge maybe in the process that you've been able to overcome, or a learning that helped validate that you were on the right direction? Because I think sometimes people see these challenges and they think they can't be overcome, but you've proven that it's possible.
Yeah, gosh. Well, there's definitely been some real challenges, and Garrow's book is very honest about what those are. And I'll just say, for example, we wanted to do mint our mint oil is obviously like a big raw material. Our peppermint is our most popular fragrance. And we want to make sure our mint is coming from somewhere awesome and being grown in a good way to the benefit of all involved. But we were initially partnered with like a UK outfit in a project that just turned out to be like there's a systemic fraud that we uncovered. And there's some whistleblowers involved in the operation where, basically they were, bringing in conventional material and slapping on the organic label. And it was like, in cahoots with our financial controls. So anyways, we had to dissolve that project, but then but the nucleus of the whistleblowers helped form the genesis of the next project that is like totally rad. And it's an independent company in Serinda Mint in Uttar Pradesh. It's totally awesome. And it's doing lentils and rice in rotation with the mint, and we're partnered with other brands that are pulling that regenerative organic. But yeah, I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, that can be, it's disappointing when something like that happens, but you just kind of keep going, and finding the right local partners is everything. Yeah. So, if you strike out with whomever, then just do the diligence, figure out who's like super legit, who really shares that ethos, and then, make magic happen with them.
Yeah. Well, and I've always really appreciated the willingness to pioneer and forge a path forward, but also the radical transparency, like what you just shared in terms of the challenges and what was uncovered and the path forward. I think that really cultivates a lot of trust in your brand as well.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, and that's it. We want to be real with our fellow brands. Like, hey, it's okay. Like things aren't going to always be perfect, and we want to share the real challenges we have together. And in fact, we're helping launch this new Purpose Pledge consortium right now. Actually, right after our podcast, I'm going to hop on with 20 other awesome pilot brands in the purposepledge.org.
Yeah, I would love talk a little bit more about the Purpose Pledge. Why the Purpose Pledge? Who are some of the partners?
Yeah, we wanted to really kind of come to circle up with the really real deal brands that are really like rocking on the level, we feel should be rocked at and have inspired us as well in our path. Like I remember like Equal Exchange and Guayaquil back in the day, like when I'm first coming in, it's like, well, where's our coconuts coming from? Like these models that were like really attending to their coffee supply chains, where the yerba mate is coming from. So, and that really inspired us. So, Purpose Pledge, we've got like Nature's Path, New Me Tea, Guayaquil, Seth Goldman, who founded Honest Tea's got his new Just Iced Tea, Justice Tea is involved. Simply, Lundberg, just some like real awesome
trailblazers.
Yeah. And so we're coming, and we've got 10 commitments, and we're going to have, working groups around each of them to really refine and ground truth them around, wages and benefits for your workers, and carbon neutrality and supply chain integrity. And just basically what really gets to the heart of a true purpose-led, mission-driven company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things I was just thinking about is I'm motivated by this sense of discontent, that there is always potential or possibility to be unlocked. And so this sense of discontent is a motivator for me. And I think that's a motivation we share.
Yeah.
Because with the Purpose Pledge and your willingness to continue pioneering with a lot of like legacy, deeply rooted brands, but to push forward to shape the future of the food industry, it's something I really appreciate.
Right on. And I'll just say like the common denominator and what I think is really crucial, and I'll shout out Patagonia, who we helped found the Regenerative Organic Alliance with, is attending to your supply chain. Like, companies that are doing cool stuff in their headquarters, which we do and we're very proud of. I mean, that's great. But if you're not attending to your supply chain, that's 95% of your impact for any food or beverage or clothing or agricultural based, company like soaps, like there's, 100 times more people involved in terms of farmers and workers in our supply chain and land area and ecosystem impact. And if you're not attending to that, then you're not really doing what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
So, and I also appreciate Whole Foods, like the whole trade program, and like, celebrating Rock and Regenified on the and the Greener World's standards, and like, figuring out, okay, what's the legit standards, and like really highlighting supply chain integrity, and coming, actually visiting, sharing a palm, and it's so crucial.
Yeah. That's a responsibility that we also take very seriously, to be a standard bearer in the industry and to continue advancing, with the hopes that other companies, other retailers, other brands will follow.
Your standards team, I mean, there's just not another retailer that comes close. And like, we were extremely frustrated, back in like the 2005 to 8 with all the organic misbranding that was happening in personal care, and Whole Foods, kind of dropped the law and said, okay, you got to like, meet the NSF 305 standard or the NOP standard, or drop your claim. Yeah, just doing the work to know, because there's always like the industry friendly kind of joke standard version, which is, out there to just confuse consumers. Right. And you guys do the work of like, okay, no, these are the real regenerative standards, and these are the ones we're going to recognize. These are the real fair trade ones. These are the real, So just that's so crucial, and really grateful that you guys are doing that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, like I mentioned, we take that responsibility very seriously. I also think often about the fact that our purpose would not be possible, like Dr. Bronner's, who share our values, who share our mission, and are willing to pioneer alongside of us. So much appreciate. I have a handful of like lighter lightning round questions for you, but before we go there, is there anything else that you want to make sure our listeners know or hear from you?
Yeah, well, I do want to just shout out Rock. The regenerative organic standard. It is like, we feel like the one standard rule them all. We're bringing together the best of soil health, the best of fair labor, the best of animal welfare, putting it all into one single consumer-facing standard. Really excited to see the traction we're getting, and so many different brands like Simply that are, on the regenerative organic board with Sorella. And
okay, I have to ask, your title of Cosmic Engagement Officer, how does that connect to the personal journey that you just shared? Or how did you land on that title?
Yeah. Well, when I promoted my brother to president, he knew I didn't want to be CEO. It's just like, so he came up with Cosmic Engagement Officer. But it's also, I think, like, probably most of my family, I'm most with my granddad. Like, he's in some ways like, he was already kind of tapped in. He didn't need medicines to get there. But I understand, like, just the, like, we just live in this wonderful spiritual mystery that is, awesome. And, we're in a space opera in outer space, the human, here we are, figuring out how to do things in a good way. And so I guess just because I'm a little more cosmic or something.
All right. To shift gears into just a handful of lighter questions.
Yeah.
If you had to pick one scent within your line for the rest of your life, what would you pick?
Peppermint, I guess. Yeah.
Me too.
I was just saying, I'm about to go into a eucalyptus phase. I go through like different phases. But yeah, I mean, that's like kind of my go-to. And
okay.
Yeah.
Color scheme, tie-dye or rainbows?
Rainbow tie-dyes.
I love it. Meditation or yoga?
Meditation.
Land or water?
I'm so inflexible. Water. I love surfing in the waves, and yeah.
Yeah, no. Me too. What is your daily go-to breakfast?
It's basically toast with like our virgin coconut oil from our sister company in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Mixed with almond butter, peanut butter, and then fruit, like usually blueberries or sometimes strawberries, and then some maple syrup. Kind of mix that all up, and then put down some toast.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Do you have a daily habit that keeps you grounded outside of your breakfast?
Cannabis. Yeah. I mean,
all right.
in the right proportion, but I mean, honestly, it's such a ally and really helps me. Just, take moral inventory. It helps you disinvest from your ego. Like I'll, oftentimes be in like whatever argument with my wife or my brother, and just like kind of like disinvest and kind of get a more objective view of it. Obviously it's all in balance, like there's a time to not, be smoking and time, but then I was teasing my wife. I was like, Judgment Day, I don't want to be up there. And it's like, man, there's so many times you could have been taking an edible and having a way better time than whatever. So
you want to enjoy this life.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
We were just talking about it with the kids, we were just walking, the kids were just stoked, they're just having a great time, it's just like, we want to, wherever we go, let's have as awesome a time as possible.
Yeah. Well, and I was sharing that one of the things I'm really working on right now is just cultivating more joy. Like when you see the energy and the playfulness of kids, it's important that we as adults don't lose sight of that sense of joy and carefreeness. If you could go back to yourself 20 years ago, or maybe to someone who's much earlier in their journey and wanting to start a brand or follow a path similar to yours, what advice would you give them?
Well, follow your bliss kind of thing, like Joseph Campbell, like just, don't compromise. I mean, we all have to compromise to some extent, but don't in college, I mean, I could just see people like, studying their lives away and then like go work for some high paying consulting job and slaving away for like 12 hours a day, and it's just like, figure out, take the time, breathe, take the time, to travel and see the world and just broaden your horizons and try to find, like my first job was as a mental health counselor. Reagan had gutted the mental health system at the time in Massachusetts or everywhere. And half of staff hours were like temps like me that had no relevant experience, but it was like a really great first, outside of my family job to have. But I would just say like, just stay, stay real, I guess.
Stay real and follow your bliss.
Yeah.
Well, David, this was such an honor to have this conversation. I have always sincerely admired the work of Dr. Bronner's and also your leadership in driving forward ethical sourcing practices and how you think about cultivating the environment, in the radical transparency, and frankly, just in the unquestionable values that you demonstrate at every turn, even when it's hard. And it was such an honor to be able to hear more about your story, the story behind Dr. Bronner's, and to share that with our listeners today too. So thank you so very much for being here.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me and for being the very best retailer, in the country, just setting the bar and being awesome in so many ways.
I love it. And thank you for tuning in to Beyond the Board, where we're highlighting the people and the products really shaping the future of food. I'm incredibly excited to see what's next for Dr. Bronner's. So thank you.